let's get to Democrat of the Day. The vice chair of the DFL is Marge Hoffa. She is kind enough to join us on a primary day and a big news day to talk about the DFL here in the state of Minnesota. Marge, thank you much. Welcome back.
Hi, Matt. It's good to be back again. We haven't chatted for a while. It's been kind of a different year in so many respects, right?
Well, and I mean, I love talking with you and Ken. But I also try to get as many of these other Democrats on because we have so many running, and especially with and here's the problem this year is when we had all the problems with the George Floyd situation as well as also the coronavirus. I had 2 months of shows where we could have had Democrats on. We don't, so I'm really kind of working on that. But I wanted to bring you on today with the primary, because I know I don't want to necessarily bring anyone on who's in a primary right now, and as well, a lot of people are looking at us today as kind of a breather day. But first, I have to ask you the question: the vice presidential nominee pick. I'm going to guess Secret Service showed up and they gave up the ticket there. Kamala Harris, your thoughts on Biden's pick?
You know, I am really excited. I think she's going to be a great partner for him. They obviously have had their differences, but they certainly have, they've come to a partnership agreement where he has confidence in her ability, and I think it's just great. I mean, Kennedy picked Johnson. Kerry picked John Edwards. So it's. I think it really says a lot when you're reaching out to people that you don't necessarily agree with 100%, and then you come together and you say, hey, we're in this together. We're going to go forward, and we're going to make this better, this country a better place.
Well,
and I'm really excited about that.
And remember Obama, when he picked Biden, Biden wasn't being mentioned by a lot of people. And he specifically went out of his way to say, I want the foreign policy experience, and I want a guy who can navigate Congress. And so he specifically went after Biden, and they were able to accomplish a lot with that team. This feels a lot like this. This shores up some of Biden's shortfalls. Kamala Harris, and like I mentioned there, she's going to dismantle Pence and Trump in these debates. That's for sure. And what you do is you bring in. I mean, it clearly is. I get the strong feeling that this was Biden realizing his weaknesses. Kamala Harris shores them up, and also gives the Democrats, a new leadership role, as we're going to have. I mean, Kamala Harris is clearly going to be a name now that's going to be, part of the Democratic Party here for the next 10, 15 years at least.
Yes, for sure. And, she's got a great story, too. I mean, her parents, they immigrated to the U.S., Jamaica and India, and she's got a lot of experience, not just in the Senate, but in the California, in the politics in California. And I think that she just brings a different perspective. And I think that she, like you said, she's going to help fill in the gaps that he doesn't necessarily have filled. And I think they'll be a really good they'll be good partners. And I think he was looking for someone that would be how he was with Obama, where they truly worked together and it wasn't just a ceremonial title. He wanted somebody that was going to get in there and work with him. And I think that's what he had to look for. That's what he found. And I'm hoping that with this pick that we can all go forward together, united, and that they do keep in mind for their cabinet some of the other fantastic people that ran for the presidency, and they could certainly, I heard you say earlier, Elizabeth Warren for the Treasury. But we just have I can't think of one person that ran for president that doesn't have something special to offer in other positions. And I hope that the two of them take advantage of all of the opportunities that they have in that respect.
Well, I want to also bring transfer over to primary day here. Is obviously we're getting a lot of races that are being decided officially today in the state of Minnesota. Your thoughts on this? I mean, obviously, as the DFL, you've got your endorsed candidates, but you have to wait to see what the people say.
Oh, for sure. I think that the primary is going to be very good for our endorsed candidates, quite frankly, because there was a lot of thought put into that process. And I think that no matter who wins the primaries, that we're going to come out of this united and ready to the general election. Because what's happened, as across the country, has been, just devastating without having national leadership. I mean, we've had to rely on our governor, and of course, we could have better leadership if we have the Senate as well. So I think that we're looking forward to, flipping the Minnesota Senate and making sure that we can actually get things accomplished in our state. And then, if we get Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected, and the U.S. Senate races are looking pretty good, too, in a number of states. I'm sure you've been paying attention to, like Arizona, where who doesn't want an astronaut senator? I mean, really.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of possibilities across the country to pick up Senate seats, too. So I'm optimistic that with a lot of work and with our great volunteers and that we're going to move forward to November.
Marge Hoffa joining us, the vice chair of the DFL. I've taken a lot of calls from some people over the years here, and I've seen this happen before. There's sometimes it feels like, as we are in the primary season, there are fake candidates being run against our DFLers that have are mysteriously propped up. I mean, there have been numerous cases. I've actually shrugged my shoulders like, what's going on here? Republicans are desperate to hold on to seats, and if they feel as if one of their candidates is vulnerable, this doesn't surprise me. I mean, talk a little bit about that. I mean, and I want to be very clear here. I am not specifically talking about any race. I'm just talking about this new tactic by the Republicans, which seems to be to run fake candidates. We saw that down in South Carolina with that Senate race that they ran, and this is something that seems to be happening, even on local races in some cases.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate that they can't stand on what the merits of their candidates, and they feel like they have to, go towards shenanigans like that. I think that it's up to us to educate the voters and let them know, what our candidates stand for and where they are on the issues, and make sure that they know that we're the ones that are with them. We're with the middle class. We're with, making sure that the kids that don't have meals during the pandemic get meals that they normally would have gotten in school, like with Ilhan. She, passed that Meals Act so that would be taken care of. I mean, nobody wants to see our children going hungry, regardless of their income. That's just not right. So there's just a lot of things that we have to educate voters about and let them know where we stand and make sure they get out and vote. That's the big thing.
Mm-hmm. Whatever happens after this, we're going to be looking, and we talked to Steve Simon yesterday, the Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. We are looking at a very, very interesting landscape, to say the least, for the general election. One of the things that was a huge success in 2018 was we got Democrats, DFLers, into districts that have generally not had a lot of door knocking from the DFL. We got in there, and it clearly made a difference. We got that House back. And, I mean, I think we can do the same thing with the Senate. But, of course, coronavirus is an interesting side note here. We're dealing with a unique situation. How is the DFL approaching this? Because, I mean, obviously, the candidates are looking to the DFL for guidance. How are you looking at, when door knocking is such a traditional element of a campaign, supplanting that with other things that are more socially acceptable in the age of coronavirus?
Right. Well, we've made it real clear since the beginning of this that we are not in any way going to jeopardize the health of our staff, the campaign workers, or volunteers, or of constituents, the voters. We're just not going to do that. It's just a bad policy. So we've stayed clear from the door knocking, and even the DFL office. We've been there's just a couple people that go there, and they on and off basis, and they're otherwise it's closed. It's just because it's not safe to expose people to potentially getting the virus. So, who knows what will happen after Labor Day? We're just keeping an eye on it and seeing how things are going, and kind of taking guidance from the governor on what his guidelines are. But, we really have to think of the health and safety of people before we think about politics. It's just more important.
When we talk to Steve Simon, one of the things that's a concern, obviously it's on top of his list, is the Postal Service. It seems that I was reading a story on Huffington Post today, clearly The game plan right now is for the post office to try to gum up the works. No new hiring, mandatory retirements, end of overtime, trying to restrict the mail service as it is. Even Steve Simon suggested, probably about a 2-week window before, if you're mailing in a ballot for the general election in November, you probably want that in the mail at least 2 weeks before the election to make sure it gets there in time. How are you? How is the DFL looking at this? Because obviously, you're looking at it on a state level, but once again, it's all these elections. Even though there's federal candidates there, it's important that all these votes get counted.
Oh, absolutely, and we are doing ballot chases too to make sure people get their ballots in. And what's nice about the Secretary of State's website is you can go right on it and check to see if your ballot's been accepted.
Yep.
I looked on mine for the primary. Mine was accepted July 1st. So I think I would encourage people to, vote early and then check with the Secretary of State's website to make sure it's there and it's been counted. Because there's been a few people, friends of mine on Facebook, who have said there was some kind of glitch in a different county, that they said something wasn't there that they thought was there, and make sure you check on it and make sure it's okay. It should be fine. There's very few glitches on this, but that's one way to follow up and make sure not only did you get your vote in, but it was received and accepted. And the big thing is like Steve Simon said, is to make sure that you vote as early as you can. And by the way, if you get your votes in early and the Secretary of State tracks that, we also track whose ballot's already in. So if you vote early, you're going to probably get a lot less phone calls saying, have you voted? Have you voted? Have you voted? So if you want to, avoid getting extra phone calls, voting would be, something that the Secretary of State keeps track of, and we follow what they've got, and it would alleviate that from your phone calls. So,
one final thing, Marge, and I just want to just give you a moment here to talk. We do have primary races going on. There are great DFLers who are following candidates that tomorrow morning, or maybe even the day afterwards, depending on when these votes get counted, they're going to find out the person they have been backing is not the candidate that's going to be on the ticket. And let's talk a little bit about unity. We understand passion. You understand backing someone. This is the process. But at the end of the day, whoever wins these DFL nominations are the primary winners. Those are the people that are going to be on the ballot, and we need to get unified.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with the political atmosphere right now, that it's something that's very clear to people that are engaged in this, that we can't not be unified. I mean, we have to. I mean, we can't have the third-party candidate stuff that went on last time with the presidential. We can't, we have to be together on this if we're going to win. We've made over 1 million volunteer calls in the last few weeks just to try to get a hold of people to vote in the primary. It's going to continue. We're going to find other ways to reach out to people, and we've got texting and we've got phone calling going on and roundtable discussions with candidates and all kinds of things to get people engaged. And I just think that they will be united because they know how important this election is. And I know we hear every 2 years, this is the most important election of our lifetime. But I'm pretty darn old, and I'll tell you, if we have 4 more years of Donald Trump, I don't know if our country can survive it. I really don't. And it's going to be a really hard 4 years if we do not elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to be our president and VP. So I can't stress enough, people have to volunteer, they have to be engaged, and they have to vote.
Absolutely. And once again, you just said it. You can't. We need real change. We need the Senate to change hands here in Minnesota. We need, of course, Tina Smith back in the U.S. Senate as well. And we also need a new president because, dear God, has he been a train wreck. All right, Marge, a busy day. I know I've taken you longer than I said I was going to. Thank you very much. Marge Hoffa, the vice chair of the DFL, all my best on a primary day, and we'll check in. We'll get all those results for everyone tomorrow, okay?
Okay, sounds good, Matt. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Marge Hoffa, kind enough to join us, Democrat of the Day. Let's take a break. This will be a little bit of a longer one. We'll be back. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.